Thanks for joining me for a Kick Up the Arts. I am Nicola Meehan, and if you missed my sold-out conversation with Amitri's Justin Currie in Edinburgh a few months back, or even if you were there in our lovely audience and you fancy listening again, well, it's right here. I've spoken to Justin various times over the years about his songwriting, about Amitri, and more recently about his best-selling book The Tremolo Diaries, which reflects on life on the road and his Parkinson's diagnosis. But this time around, we chatted about some of his Scottish cultural loves. It's part of a series, All Back to Mine, where a guest offers us an imaginary afternoon or evening round at their house, discussing a Scottish album they'd play us, a film that they'd show us, and then a book for some bedtime reading. It's seen guests like Altered Images Clare Grogan discussing Simple Minds, Aftersun and the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and Teenage Fanclub's Norman Blake chatting about Orange Juice, The Wicker Man and Nan Shepherd's The Living Mountain, and Val McDermid singing the praises of Rab Noakes, Local Hero, and James Robertson's And the Land Lay Still, and so many more fab guests with terrific recommendations. Justin came armed with a clipboard of notes and waxed lyrical in his love for art pop trailblazer Davy Henderson, of the Fire Engines and the Nectarine No. 9, along with Lynn Ramsay's film adaptation of Alan Warner's Morven Caller. That's a psychological drama that sees the titular character waking up to find her partner's body dead by suicide. Its disorienting exploration of grief sees Morven hide the body, spend his money, and take ownership of his unpublished book manuscript. Justin also reflected on his newfound love of Muriel Spark, in particular her late 60s skewering of celebrity culture, The Public Image, a book, of course, that chimes with Amitri's post-punk roots, given that John Lydon also took his lead from the title when he named his post-Sex Pistols outfit Public Image Limited. Of course he did. Thanks again if you joined us live at this event, and to everyone at the stand in Edinburgh for being brilliant, and particular thanks to Justin Currie himself, not just for being fab company as always, but for squeezing in our afternoon chat before he hot-footed it for an evening gig with Amitri at Floor's Castle in Kelso. Give a huge, warm welcome to Justin Currie! Woo!
Hello. Thank you.
There we go. And that's you on the stage. And do have a seat, because it's a busy day. I would feel guilty about making you speak, but at least you've got a seat, and this is probably going to be the quietest part, because it's a gig tonight.
Yeah, it's a pretty leisurely day, though.
Is
We're
it?
quite reasonably near Kelso, and maybe have some lunch on the way down.
Yeah.
Maybe have a walk in a field, stroke a horse.
Stroke a horse. That's what I do every time. What did you do? What's the rock and roll lifestyle like? There's not enough horse stroking. This sounds like a euphemism, by the way. In the Tremolo Diaries, that might be volume 2. Just to let you know a little bit about how things are going to go. We're probably halfway through already, by the way. Apologies. We are here for an hour. We will wind up at 3 o'clock sharp for the aforementioned gig and horse stroking reasons. If you've got any questions right at the end, we will try and squeeze in a few of them as well. But in the meantime, we'll chat about life, the universe, I don't know, everything. But we're also recording this series as part of a Kick Up the Arts All Back to Mine. So this is when we sort of gate crash, or maybe we're invited virtually round to the guest's house for an afternoon or evening's entertainment, right? Yeah, exactly. Imagine that. Even I don't have Justin's address. With good reason. So Justin's going to play us a Scottish album, chat about why he loves that. Then we're going to move through maybe to the VHS player, and he'll chat about a Scottish film he would play us, and then a Scottish book for some bedtime reading. But just before we get to that, obviously you are in the middle of this promotional cycle, really, for the Tremolo Diaries. You're doing lots of events which are particularly about that. We decided to do that before the book had a publication date, so this isn't officially one of them. What's it like being out promoting a book, not an album?
It's so different, and it's really terrifying, especially if the book is autobiography, because they can ask you anything. But when you're promoting an album, there's like 10 standard questions. Where did you record it? Who produced it? Why are you doing this?
That's me out of a job.
But I mean, these diaries it's just a kind of internal monologue. So I mean, I'm not sure if it's a character or if it's me, but it's certainly a lot of that guy. A lot of what happens to him is stuff that's happened to me. Yeah. And so
bears an uncanny resemblance.
It's kind of terrifying. I mean, they can literally ask you anything. I mean, I did an interview with the Belfast Telegraph, and I was in the kitchen making a cup of tea before I got into the Zoom, and for some reason it crossed my mind, what if he asked me about Israel Palestine? And the fucker did. And so I'd kind of rehearsed roughly what I was going to say and kind of tiptoeing between the various, metaphorical and literal landmines in that situation. So yeah, you've got to be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
And then I did an interview with Billy Sloan the other day, and he quoted huge parts of the book and like paragraphs, and you're thinking, that guy sounds really depressed. And then he would ask me a question. I was like, I don't really recognise that guy.
Yeah.
If you're writing an internal monologue, it's like, shit, that's just the stuff you think. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that now. I wouldn't go, God, I'm really fucked off today, Whereas when you're writing a diary, you do, because you're writing to yourself or something.
I think that's a really key element of this particular book, and what makes it really quite exceptional in many ways. It wasn't written, if you like, with publication really to that extent in mind. You weren't sitting down. It was your tour diaries, but
yeah, and I've been writing tour diaries for years. Yeah. But I think halfway through I knew it was going to be. I decided it was a book and not a radio show or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I did actually know it was going to be published halfway through. So I think the second half's a lot better than the first half. But maybe that's just me. So you got to wade through a lot of really boring stuff to get to the juice.
It's all great. There's a lot of descriptions of food on tour, and it's like you get an insight not just into the sort of rock and roll lifestyle, but actually the boredom of a lot of it. They're just staving off boredom during the day and passing time.
Is that an insight anybody really needs?
No, it's wonderful. And so you do have this book. You're talking about it, and it will be very different, I would imagine, to an album. We'll no doubt touch on it in and out over the next little while. We're going to speak about a book that you chose for us a little bit later. I've tried to hide it. I mean, it's not really a great spoiler. But first of all, you're going to play us a record, right? So let's imagine we're at Shea Currie. Okay, You've let us in, maybe you haven't, but we're inside anyway.
Well, usually you only gain entrance if you're so drunk that you won't remember where you've been. Most people cannot find my house, even though they've been there twice before, because they were so pissed the first time.
That's an excellent ruse.
It's a great security technique.
That's a fine way of doing it.
We did once invite a load of people back from the pub to our house, me and my girlfriend, and we got a bit bored, so we decided, well, let's just go to the sub club. So we just left and went down in the sub club and had a couple of drinks and a dance, and then we came back about 4 a.m, and they'd all left, but they were obviously really pissed off. So for some reason they left a banana in the hall to show that was some kind of dirty protest. But we left them a fridge full of alcohol. It's like, what's not to love?
It's a very genteel, dirty protest. That'll show them. Put that banana down there. Maybe it was a Velvet Underground reference. You never know. Never know. Was it tricky to find us an album then to play?
Yeah,
because there's a lot of Scottish albums.
I really overthought all this.
I have to say, I'll just tell you, Justin I've been doing this for a while now. I've had lots of guests. Clare Grogan's done it. Val McDermid's done it. Ian Rankin, lots of musicians. No one has been as diligent as Justin. Well, and no one else has brought a clipboard on stage. It's very cute.
Do you know, there used to be a theory that if you had a clipboard, you could get into any building in the world. But that's no longer true, but apparently with a high-vis jacket. Apparently somebody was at the Oasis gig in Murrayfield and just walked in with a high-vis jacket. And
that's brilliant.
Do you know, I've said that, and somebody's probably just lost their job because I said that.
So you overthought it, but you did come up with an answer.
Well, I had a couple of concepts. First of all, I wanted 3 women, but I couldn't find. Now,
I didn't ask for that, by the way. But
no,
yes.
I thought that's a good idea, but I couldn't find a female music artist that I thought I could talk about at length, and I racked my brain. You'll probably suggest somebody, and I think, why didn't I think of that? And then I had this, because I wanted you to have Muriel Spark for the book. I hope that's not a blow in your show there. And Muriel Spark's father was Jewish, a secular Jew, and her mother was Catholic, but I think she had Jewish grandparents.
Oh, he has gone deep.
So then I thought, wow, Scottish Jews, Ivor Cutler. So Ivor Cutler, that'll have to be the music. But then I really struggled to find a Scottish Jewish filmmaker. Mm-hmm. The MacDonald brothers have got Jewish grandparents.
That's right, they have.
So then I thought I could do Touching the Void, but I thought there's not a lot to say. So I gave up on that one. And then, so at least I've got 2 women and 1 bunch of blokes.
That is utterly, utterly wonderful. You touching on Ivor Cutler's interesting, because Hamish Hawke last weekend at the Book Festival was inhabiting, his life and his music, and he's certainly someone that strikes a chord. But the band and the artist you've chosen, the Nectarine Number 9 for the record, in many ways bring in so much of art and post-punk and just wild ideas. So at what point did you hit on them and go, right, Davy Henderson? Were you always a fan of him, like back in the Fire Engines days?
Huge Fire Engines fan. I never saw the Fire Engines, sadly. I didn't really get Win, that kind of art pop project that Davy Henderson did, but he's a genius. And it often, because they were on Fast and not on Postcard, they kind of get a bit ignored in the whole kind of Postcard assessment of Scottish pop culture.
That's so true, yeah.
And this album came out in 1995, which I think was the last great resurgence or renaissance of rock music.
Okay.
I mean, apart from maybe towards the end of the 90s and the beginning of the zeros with like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and the Strokes and things, and then later the Arctic Monkeys, the mid-90s, if you ignore Britpop, there were loads of great mainstream and quite left field rock records being made on both sides of the Atlantic, and in Europe and in Australia. There's tons of this stuff that nobody talks about now, and Nectarine Number 9 are right in the middle of that. And I'd kind of forgotten about it, and I was looking through my CDs because I was doing a bunch of book signings and I needed something to play in the background, and I found that album that I thought, I love that album.
Yeah.
So and I'd listened to it twice in a row, and it's kind of artier than I remember, actually. There's loads of, it starts with a rock song, and then there are 2 instrumentals, a really beautiful instrumental on the second song, which is very sort of late Beefheart.
Curdled Fragments.
Yeah, it's just
my favourite.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Stunning. That was our walk-on music, Justin.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. And then, so there are sort of mainstream rock things, I mean, kind of alternative rock things, which are beautifully recorded by a guy that we work with called Kenny MacDonald. He was a great engineer. He was the drummer in Bougie, and he was really good at getting great drum tracks out of good drummers and different drummers, bad drummers. So the bass playing and drumming in this album's exceptional. The lyrics are great. The attitude's great, and I hate the word journey, but it's a sort of story of something. I'm not sure what it's about, but it takes you on a musical path from A to B in a way that most albums don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it got a bit lost at the time, and it was actually on, although the Fire Engines had been signed to Fast, which were in Edinburgh, so that's lovely and apt. It was that particular record, the Nectarine Number 9, came out on what was a sort of slightly revived Postcard Records for a little while.
I didn't realise it was on that.
Yeah, because it was kind of so quietly done, though.
Yeah, so Alan Horn did the artwork and all that sort of stuff. So maybe it's the last great Postcard record.
Yeah, quite. And it is. I think it then got a sort of 20th anniversary reissue. But it's brilliant. Like, selfishly, this is what I love about doing this as a sort of an idea, because it sends me back to loads of albums that I've forgotten about. So when I went back to it, I was like, that's right. Oh, yeah, as I say, Curdled Fragments. And then I'm like, my God, it's the great lost Del Amitri title of all time. This arsehole's been burned too many times before. You could totally have that on an album.
I would never put the word arsehole in the title. But it's got it has a kind of Scottish poetry element to it.
They did stuff with Jock Scott, didn't they? So, yeah.
And I mean, he comes across like this kind of seedy, dissolute James Bond.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And it surprises me how little it's been used in soundtracks and for, needle drop music and TV and things, because it's just ideal for that,
Yeah. Davy Henderson is just an incredible figure. I think the Fire Engines played, this was later on. I did this festival called Triptych, and we brought over the Sun Ra Orchestra at the Liquid Rooms, and Davy Henderson was like, yeah, the Fire Engines will do that. So this is in the sort of early 2000s, and you've got Marshall Allen there and all these incredible guys in the robes, and they all swan off, but everybody made a beeline for Davy. Like, Davy, you're amazing. He's really got that sort of hero status. And when you were young, was that sort of a band? Sort of, you said you didn't see them, but were you listening to them?
Because they were so original. They were, I describe them as art rock. And they were synthesizing the things you were supposed to synthesize, like Captain Beefheart on Television and the Velvet Underground, but they got it right, and they did it in the right way, whereas we did it really badly. And lots of bands did it really badly. And you can hear a lot of that still on this record. And again, melody and counter melody. There's very few chords. There's very few cymbals. Yeah. So it's quite conceptual.
Yeah.
But it's just, I absolutely love it. And I completely. So thank you for asking me to do this, because I'd forgotten how much I loved it. And it was one of those records when I was listening to lots of really good American rock music on tour in the States, that sat beside all that stuff and really held its own, which is quite unusual for something that's recorded in Scotland, you know.
Who else, when you were younger, like of the Scottish bands, were you aware of, or were you looking to? Because everyone kind of falls into that sort of postcard chat or whatever, or Alex Harvey maybe a bit earlier, because there are all these really, really divergent, wild ideas that are happening in Glasgow and Edinburgh, further afield, and they don't all sound anything like each other.
No, I mean, obviously, as a big Orange Juice fan, I loved the first Static Camera single. We were, the school version of Amitri, we were obsessed with Joseph Kay, and somebody unearthed some footage of us playing at the QM when we were like, I must have been 15 or something, 16. And it's the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen, because we're wearing Joseph Kay's clothes, we're playing Joseph Kay's style of music, and we're dancing like Joseph Kay, which in those days you had your guitars really high up and you had quite baggy trousers that were tight at the bottom, and you sort of swayed your legs side to side really frenetically, like kind of madly, and I thought, God, those bands must have hated us, you know, because we were just such copyists, but copying really original and interesting things.
Do you remember, was that a gig at which you thought, yeah, I want to do this, even if it's not in these trousers?
I mean, I wanted to do it from the age of 8. It's somebody was talking about this in the radio the other day about how, do you know, it was Anthony Hopkins. I was watching Anthony Hopkins being interviewed, and he was quite refreshing, because he was talking about his career, and he was saying, you've got to understand, I am ruthlessly ambitious. Why would I do theatre when I could have a film career? And I thought, that's quite refreshing, you know. And I know Ian and I from Amitri realised a few years ago when this Australian author was writing a book about us, you know, a kind of story of Amitri thing. We were like, God, we were really ambitious, and I don't think we even admitted to ourselves that we were so ambitious. But yeah, we wanted. We didn't have a specific aim. We didn't want to be number one, or we didn't want to be single of the week in the NME, or that would have been nice. We just wanted it, whatever it was, you know. And I think maybe that was just being a professional musician and not having a boss and not having a job. And that's a decent enough ambition, I think.
Absolutely, but it's also interesting that perhaps at the time you weren't aware of it or chasing it, but in reflection.
In reflection, we were ruthlessly ambitious. You know, people got fired. You know, managers, guitar players, drummers. We were constantly trying to get better as musicians, write better songs. Even though I think we'd be the first to admit we don't have any natural talent, but we do have a desire to be better or something. And I think we would have found that in other bands really vulgar and distasteful, but that was us.
Sorry for you guys.
Yeah.
Was there a point at which you did, you know, you speak to a lot of people and it's hearing a song on the radio or it's a song being on Top of the Pops, and there is very much a tipping point when Nothing Ever Happens is released to some extent, right, and it cuts through everything else in the latter end of one year and the start of another, and you've got all the kind of Christmassy songs, and then you get this absolute, you know, real sort of minimalist shock in the middle of it with an acoustic guitar. Was there a point where you thought, yeah, if not, we've made it, because what is it? Something is changing here.
So, I mean, overnight, just you get Top of the Pops and then you're famous. End of story, and that's it. You never look back in those days, because 8 million people see it was nuts, completely nuts. And then all of a sudden, you're playing to thousands of people, not hundreds of people, literally overnight.
Yeah.
Very, very strange.
Was it literally that thing of, right, that's it, you can't go, everyone knows you in the street now, everybody knows you, like you've just been rocking around, and you've been a band for a long time, and you've been playing live for ages before that.
And I mean, we really struggled to find an audience in Glasgow because we were so uncool. We were this postcard copyist band, and we were really irritating, I have to say.
In what way?
Well, we got postcard wrong, like a lot of other bands, and we focused on the twee rather than on. Postcard was quite steely, because to walk around the streets dressed like that and make that kind of quite innocent sounding, very romantic music at the tail end of punk rock and the beginning of post-punk was quite radical, and people would beat you up. And we weren't brave. We were twee, and we would just run away, and not get beaten up. So yeah, we didn't fit into the kind of new cool soul scene that was kind of coming up in the early 80s. So having a pop hit was kind of vindicating in a way, but also I was quite sceptical initially about the Glasgow audience, because for 10 years we couldn't find a Glasgow audience. It was just our mates, and slowly but surely a few more people would come along, but then you have a hit in the British charts and suddenly you're selling out Barlands, and you think, where the fuck have you been all this time? You know, but I mean, I guess that audience didn't know where we were, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You don't know what you're looking for.
No.
But again, you're saying how ruthless you were and how ambitious you were, but also you just cannot second guess a song either, because I'm sure if you were setting out to write a pop hit, right, this is going to be the song, this is going to be one that really changes the world for us as a band. I don't necessarily think that you would write Nothing Ever Happens with that in mind.
No, it wasn't written with that in mind, but I remember playing it to our manager at the time, Barbara Shores, and her and I looked at each other and thought, that could be the one that makes people listen. So we always said to A&M Records, please put that out as a single at some point.
Right.
And then they put it out at the beginning of January when there was not a lot coming out, and it was very luckily there was nothing else like it at the time, so it just walked onto radio. So there was a lot of chance and luck involved in it. But I always thought, because it's got a chorus, and I don't really write choruses, and it's sort of got a tune. I don't really write tunes either. It's got a lot of lyrics.
You're selling it well.
It's got a lot of lyrics, but lyrics don't make hits. You know, tunes and choruses make hits on the whole. So I always had a sneaky feeling about that. But that's the only thing I've ever been right about. Ever since then, I've been convinced that, you know, such and such a song is going to be a hit, and I'm always wrong.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is there anyone in particular?
Yeah,
like, why was that
I thought
not
Not Where
massive?
It's At was going to be a massive hit in America and in Britain, and it wasn't.
It was a single. It was big,
It was
but
a
you
single,
thought,
but
I know what you're saying.
It
like,
didn't really trouble the upper reaches of the charts. Yes, I mean, what does hit mean? I mean, if you're not in the top 20, it's not really a hit, and most of our songs were never in the top 20.
Well, lyrics, or rather lack of them, lead us a little bit to the film you've chosen, which comes with an incredible soundtrack as well, featuring, among others, Can. Not so far away, in fact, from the Nectarine number 9 in many ways, and Krautrock. Now, Morven Callar, of course, incredible book by Alan Warner.
Yeah, I love the book, yeah.
But it's a film adaptation you've gone for. What I would say, just for starters, is a bit like that St. Jack album. There's nothing like this.
No. I went, again, I overthought this. I went through a lot. I thought about going for Alexander McKendrick's Sweet Smell of Success, which is an American film, but Scottish director. And I kind of know that film backwards. But Morven Callar is one of those films, like Catch-22 and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's interchangeable with the book. It looks exactly the way the book looks in your mind.
It's got the same feel somehow.
Yeah.
There's a real strangeness. There's a real sort of detachment, but it's very sort of addictive as well. It's a strange, there's a strange power to it.
And it's I watched it 3 times and noticed lots of things about it which are really brilliant, which I hadn't noticed the first time. The first time I thought that she's got the book onto the screen. That's brilliant. But she changes her style all the time. So she starts off with this very kind of sort of, I don't know, cinema verite or something, kind of handheld or tripod shot. So it's quite close. It's like a shot like a Ken Loach film or something maybe. But then there's a really weird pivotal scene where she cuts to the supermarket, and there's a woman in a mobility scooter who comes around the end of an aisle, and it cuts to this really extravagant tracking shot, and then it cuts back to Morven. She's got her earbuds in, listening to the mixtape that her boyfriend, who's committed suicide, has left for her, and you realise, what's going on here? Why is she doing this? And you think, oh right, something's changing, and you realise maybe Morven has decided to live this fantasy and kind of live his life for him, and you can't really figure out, is she acting? Is she going to put her name in his book and pretend that she's the author of his novel as a tribute to him because she's grieving and she's still in love with him? Or is there something else going on? It's really, and that's never really stated in the book either.
No, and there's no answer. So if you're not familiar, kind of very, very briefly, the story is Morven Caller, Samantha Morton plays her in the film, and this woman's boyfriend. So she finds the body and sort of goes into could be denial. You don't know quite how she's reacting.
There's certainly a bit of denial at the beginning, but the very first shot, she's kind of cradling him. So and it's very sad. But at that point, you don't know whether she might have killed him or not.
Well, that's it. And I mean, even then, we're saying that because that's what we are told. Like you really don't know. And what I love about it is, and I love about so many films and books like this, there aren't really any answers.
No, there are no answers, and she's also very good at doing that pure cinema thing where hardly any of the exposition is in the dialogue. I mean, there's a bit of exposition in the dialogue, but it's very rare, or few and far between. Most of it is just on a computer screen, or you kind of and done through the needle drop music, because there's no score. It's just all existing music, and that's presumably all the music that's on this mixtape, which is again, the music's great. So that makes you think, well, this guy was pretty cool. And she's put her name on the book, and she's got a publishing offer straight away. So maybe the book's really good. And then you get into that whole thing about, which is becoming quite a current issue, because it's becoming more and more clear that an awful lot of male authors had huge amounts of help from their wives and partners, to the point where they should really have been co-authored. These were co-authored books. And you think, well, maybe how much did Morven Caller help her boyfriend write this book? So there's all that going on.
Yeah, quite. That's completely it. Because there's so she finds this manuscript, and the detail is brilliant. Like, I'd forgotten when I watched it again, the sound of a sort of the book's 95, I think, and the films are early 2000s, isn't it? So somewhere in there, we're still talking about the old kind of computer keyboards, and even the sounds of the keys and the printer it's every detail and every sound. The soundtrack, if you like, is so of its time. But did she write it? Did he write it? Did she help? She raises his name, which we'll come back to, and puts her own in. And Samantha Morton's face is incredible. And is she being impassive? Is she grief? Is she tragic? Is she a sociopath? But at the same time, she's literally staring you in the face. There's no sort of obfuscation of it, which is wild.
And sometimes you think, what's she thinking? Maybe it's because she's really young. And you're thinking, maybe she's not thinking anything, and you feel terribly sorry for her, in spite of the fact she's chopped up her boyfriend's body. Yeah,
there's a bit, and it's like, you know American Psycho. It's like Morven Caller goes to American Psycho, like, hold my beer. It's some scene, isn't it?
But that's really well handled as well, because it's not graphic. The book's written by a man, but that female perspective in the film, I think, makes it better. Yeah. It means you really trust her as well. You really trust this is not going to be exploitative. This is going to be about a very young woman, kind of, it's partly her liberation, but just kind of growing up and dealing with this awful thing that's happened to her. Because, I mean, fuck him. They're living together. She's younger than him. And then he writes his book and then goes, right, I'm off. I'm going to kill myself. And what a horrible thing to do. And he does it very deliberately. It's not...
Yeah, it's like a means of control.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
The intimacy of the friendship. She has this friendship, the brilliant Kathleen McDermott, who's not been in many films. She's in, bizarrely though, she was also a lead in the film that Grant Stott chose when he was here the other day, Wedding Bells, which is Irvin Welsh and Dean Kavanagh, and she's in that. And their friendship is wonderful. So it's kind of a weird, I mean, it's certainly not a buddy movie, but there's a lovely intimacy in their friendship, and that really struck me as being from very much the female gaze, if you like, from Lynn Ramsay. Yeah.
I remember knowing people like that and knowing relationships like that when I was in my late teens. Seeing girl relationships like that, and obviously Alan Warner's really fascinated by that. I mean, I kind of prefer The Sopranos in a way as a depiction of female friendships, but yeah, they're really well cast, those two, because their acting styles are very different. And yeah, you're right. It's a mystery. I mean, at the end, I'm not allowed to talk about the end.
You can, yeah, because you're not. There's not really any spoilers because we don't really know what's happening.
Because she goes home and but then she tries to, because she's got money. She gets $100,000 from this publisher.
I think that's the least believable thing in the entire film.
That's just not
right.
It's really not believable.
No, she gets $100,000 advance in one check
even
for this manuscript.
Even in the mid-90s, it's not going to happen. But look, we'll let that go.
We'll let it.
But anyway, she's got money, and she asks Lana just to ditch her job because do they work in the supermarket or something? Yeah, and come away with her, and it'll all be very Thelma and Louise or something, And her friend Lana decides not to go, and then you last see her on a dance floor, but she's got her earbuds in. She's still listening to that mixtape. So you're thinking, has she gone mad, and is she locked in a permanent cycle of grief? And you kind of feeling terribly worried for her, or is that just where she wants to be? She's free, she's free of that bleak Oban scene, and also all the men in Oban are just so predatory. I mean, they don't actually do or say anything predatory.
In the film, we hasten to add.
You just look at them and go, Jesus, he's terrifying.
It's so true. You mentioning even the landscape, and there's a bit where the landscape is effectively getting, attacked for various reasons. It's certainly not a romanticised landscape at all.
And neither is the Spanish landscape.
No, but absolutely not. Yeah, because it's kind of got this road trip, but the sort of the purple heather, there ain't any of that. We're not in that sort of a movie. And there's a scene maybe halfway through, and we're into the Spanish landscape, but it's at the coast, and there's a scene with a phone box, and it's kind of like this isn't Local Hero. This isn't this is not that. This is another iconic film with a phone box by the coast. Love Local Hero. This is not that kind of a film.
No, because everything looks like it's being built. The resort that they go to looks like some kind of Stalinist housing scheme in Siberia or something.
All the way to Spain for that. Yeah.
And again, that all rings really true, And then there's that kind of beautiful scene where she leaves her pal to get wasted on E or something, and she finds this guy in the corridor who says his mum's just died.
Oh yeah.
And then then he says, "Look, well, can you just stay and talk to me?" And then she says this really brilliantly funny thing. It's like, well, I can tell you about my foster mum's funeral if you like. And he's like, that sounds great. And then the two of them go into this big cathartic thing where they kind of snog and they dance.
It's like a choreographed, it's like synchronized, almost swimming or something.
And again with music, so there's no dialogue or sound in the room, but they're both obviously utterly. But that's
about the most backstory you get.
That's the only backstory you get. And of course that
goes could be rubbish.
But that goes with Morton's life as well, because she was a ward of state from the age of 8 or something.
Yeah.
So again, great casting, I guess.
Well, watch Morven Caller, because Justin Currie watched it especially for all of us 3 times at least.
And do you know it got better every time I watched it, which is a really good sign.
Yeah. And the soundtrack is wonderful, but really does very much chime with with Davy Henderson and his outlook and his music, and certainly that Nectarine number 9 track, and the author, which we haven't mentioned yet, of the book Before She Takes It Back, her boyfriend in Morven Caller's name is James Gillespie.
Right.
And that was the school that Muriel Spark went to. So there you go.
So was that deliberate Muriel Spark reference?
I presume so.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
I've always
clever,
assumed so.
You're clever, Nicola.
I've assumed that's. I've always. Nothing's an accident,
right?
Right?
Because I kind of recognise the name because I've been swatting up a bit Miro Sparks, so that must have been in my head as well. I didn't make.
I
wish I'd made that connection. I'd look so fucking intelligent.
You can have it. You can have it. It's fine. I love that you said you wanted to choose a Muriel Spark.
Well,
book,
I started reading her recently. And yeah, so I was sort of getting into it. So I guess I'm probably going to end up reading 20 of her books.
So you've come to her now, sort of thing. So this was not something that's brilliant. And what was your in?
I'm trying to. I think maybe I just read somebody raving about her in a newspaper or something. My mum used to recommend lots of female authors from the 20th century, which I probably wouldn't have discovered without my mother recommending them. I don't think people like Penelope Fitzgerald and Elizabeth Taylor, and Muriel Spark's kind of part of that.
Very much so. Yeah.
But she's really different because on the face of it, her writing can look less serious than somebody like Penelope Fitzgerald, but actually it's deadly serious, and that's something. The older I get, the more I like in literature. The literature that looks, it's kind of light on its feet and wears its profundity very lightly. And if you don't have to reread the books, but you realise there's loads of themes going on. And
the barbs, and also I love it. These are slim volumes, but I think the wonderful thing about that is it means you go right. I'm going back into this. So the only other guest so far who's chosen a Muriel Spark book was Clare Grogan, and she went for the prime of Miss Jean Brodie because she'd pulled out of this kind of school library and just absolutely fallen for this world and the girls. But also she was saying, she read it again, and it's really harsh. It's really quite sad in so many ways. How can you be in your prime because you're clearly past? There are all these different ways again of sort of interpreting, and every line you could live on.
Yeah, and I'm going to build up to that because that seems to be like her Brideshead Revisitors or something. I think the Public Image is maybe the third one I read or the second one I read, and it's not regarded as a sort of classic. And it wasn't what I expected at all because it's very kind of swinging 60s a bit, or it's set in that kind of milieu of the angry young men and the kitchen sink drama and all that sort of stuff. But again, with a female character, it's quite similar to the character in A Far Cry from Kensington, who starts off the book one thing and then becomes something else altogether. So in the Public Image, the main character, Annabelle Christopher, is an actor, but she's not a very good actor, and everybody thinks she's stupid. And she regards herself as stupid. And you think, oh, she's stupid. And then it's quite late on in the book, she's nothing of the sort.
Absolutely.
She's clever than everybody.
When you first started saying, when you go back and you're like, who was actually saying that? I've literally got it here because it's one of my favourite lines in it, but you realise you're being wrong-footed by falling for it. She had no means of knowing that she was, in fact, stupid.
That's right.
Right? It's literally there.
Yeah.
And of course, just beautiful Muriel Spark's way with a word. But you're so right. So you go, right, I know where I am with this character. And we're sent away up the garden path.
Yeah. And because she believes all this.
Yeah.
And she's got her partner who becomes her husband, this Frederick character who's just awful, who takes himself really seriously and is always trying to get these major parts in like Strindberg and Chekhov plays, which nobody gives him because he's not good enough. But he thinks she's completely inferior to him. And of course, she becomes a film star.
Yeah.
She's discovered by an Italian director who kind of uses her implacable acting as a kind of canvas to paint this whole new character on. And again, she finds that quite liberating. So she becomes this mysterious Italianate film star with dark glasses, but becomes obsessed with her public image because that's how she gets the parts. She's in magazines and newspapers. She gets pregnant almost as a way of aiding her public image because that's what the fans will want and all this sort of stuff.
So she's sexualized on screen, but she has to be this complete kind of like mother and wedded mother behind the scenes, and that idea of the public persona. In that way, you're saying it's the 60s, but also there's a lot of it you could read now, and it's very much totally resonant with what we see in social, all the usual stuff, social media and all of that.
And she takes control of this public image to the point where the people around her think she's got the wrong end of the stick, but she kind of hasn't, because it's almost the only thing she can control. Because she doesn't get a huge amount. She gets a bit of support from one of her female friends, but on the whole, she's just regarded as a vehicle for other men to make money out of.
Yeah. But that public because that Public Image Limited, John Lydon.
I didn't realise they took
the
it.
name.
I had no idea.
Took
funnily
the
enough,
name.
I saw them a couple of weeks ago, and
has she lost her identity, or has she created her identity? Right.
There's a recurring motif of shells in the book. I wrote stuff down, but I probably never find it. But I noticed that today that there's because the last sentence was just, which I won't quote because it's so devastatingly brilliant. The last sentence, and that references shells. But her dark glasses and her makeup are a shell protecting something, and I think she's protecting the fact that she's slowly realizing that these guys are all idiots, and she's not.
Yep.
And then when she has the son Carl, she obviously becomes, I don't know, maybe it's a cliche to say, but she becomes deeply protective, but she builds the shell around the son and herself, and then she pulls off this amazing coup de grace or whatever at the end of the book, where she completely she slays her nemesis. I've written it, Billy O'Brien. I've written it down. Who is he turns up and he's a baddie, and he's a baddie because you find out that before she marries Frederick, she sleeps in them twice, and they made the bed straight afterwards.
Yeah, I know.
Which tells you everything you want to know about Billy.
That's how good our writing is, right? We get an entire character in one tiny act.
And he's a horrible character, but then suddenly you think, oh no, is he going to turn into the absolute hero of the piece? And I sort of don't want to give away the end. I mean, it does feature blackmail, which apparently is apparently Spark wrote very few books that didn't have blackmail, and sometimes she just throws in a blackmail plot almost just for a laugh.
Yeah,
it's like, why the fuck is somebody blackmailing somebody? And then it just kind of goes away. It's really strange.
It's so true. Muriel Spark thought that she could see into the future.
Right.
Do you know this? She thought she was a transmitter, and she genuinely believed that if she wrote about things, they would often befall her. So she wrote about blackmail a lot, and then eventually became a victim of it herself. She wrote about someone in a book being struck by lightning. And I mean, you could maybe bring on blackmail, but you can't certainly be, I think she's on the phone in France or Spain or somewhere, and like lightning comes down the phone and like strikes her on the lip.
See, my theory about that is like dreams and coincidences is if you're someone like Muriel Spark who writes so much, then it's statistically likely that some of those things. But I mean, look, if everything she wrote happened to her, that would be really crazy. But so it's like you something happens to you on the street and you go, God, that happened last night in a dream. Well, last night you probably dreamed 1,000 things.
Okay, it's like the 100 monkey principle, right? So
yeah,
it's like,
basically.
Okay, you're not having it.
No,
I think she could. But again, going back to these books, her writing. So wonderful, but even like a wee paragraph, I was just halfway through, and I'm like, I would just read this forever as a short story. I'm sick and tired of giving you money, said Annabel, fishing into her handbag, which lay on the counterpane. She was propped on pillows now, having woken from the dead sleep of arrested hysteria. Yeah. I'll live with that all day, thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. See, I mean, she's got that thing that Waugh has, where in Waugh's or ostensible comedies, there'll suddenly be a piece of poetry at the end of a paragraph, which is, breathtaking, because it'll appear out of, kind of out of nowhere, and she does that even more subtly, I think. And like you, I wrote down loads of quotes because just think the writing is just so great. She is not shy of using commas, which I also love. I tell you, what's great about that is the commas. If you're reading out loud, which I do quite a lot just to kind of keep myself awake, the commas give you where the breaths are and they give you the meaning. I'm sure now an editor would just take all those comments or try and take the comments out, but they're really critical, and they give you meaning and they give you rhythm. I'm totally in love with her writing now.
Yeah, I love that you came to her quite recently, and that's it.
Yeah,
You're
really
like total convert, and what a treat you've got. A few more. We'll get round to some questions from you guys if you've got any shortly. But just the way in which you love writing, and obviously you mentioned having a lot of lyrics there also. Did you ever write short stories? Did you ever write poetry? It was always lyrically directed.
I'm useless at any kind of prose.
Right. Remember, you've got a book to promote.
Yes, but I mean, but it's a diary. It's a diary.
Yeah.
I couldn't have made all that up. I mean, that's just stuff that I see and I'm thinking when I see stuff.
It's the observations.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's more of a poetic thing. So I wrote poetry when I was younger. I realised I was shit at that, and then I thought, oh, great punk rock songs. But I mean, poetry is a lot of poetry is just describing stuff, and I don't find describing stuff that difficult. I do find telling a story really difficult, and I find inventing things really difficult. Not that I haven't exaggerated a few things in the diary, and I've not made anything up, but there's some inaccuracies, I think, for effect. But yeah, I'm incapable of writing anything fictional.
From scratch.
Yeah, and I did try in my 20s and realised very quickly that I was absolutely useless at it.
Really? Did you have like a plot line or something?
No, I just started.
All right, that's probably
and I wroed like 4 pages of absolute nonsense, and I reread it like a couple of months later and was like, just stick to the songs, mate.
I'm glad you did. Well, listen, if you guys got any more questions, because time is running out. We have a few more minutes before Justin has to go to Kelso.
So you talk about music makes the hit, makes the song, and not so much the lyrics. And I have to beg to differ. As somebody who has quite severe hearing loss, I don't hear a lot of the tunes.
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot of the nuances, but I do hear the lyrics.
Yeah.
And the lyrics are, to me, really, really important.
Yeah.
And your lyrics are brilliant.
Great.
So
Thank you.
That's lovely.
Yeah, I never thought about that, actually. When on the tour we did with Bare Naked Ladies a few years ago, they always had signers at either side of the stage, which sadly I never got to see because they were kind of behind my eye line. I really wanted to see one, but I found myself singing the lyrics. I'd be thinking, how on earth are they singing that? I really wanted to see that. But my thing is that even though I really love lyrics and I love writing lyrics and I really work on the lyrics, if I hear a song on the radio, I don't really hear the lyrics. It's weird, and I don't remember other people's lyrics. I have to kind of end up studying them and reading them. I mean, there are exceptions. I mean, things like Dylan always hit me between the eyes, but sometimes, I mean, for example, years ago, I went to see that band Elbow, and I thought they're quite good, but I'm not a huge fan. And it was only watching them live where I thought, God, this guy really writes great lyrics, and he tells a great story. Again, that's one of the great things about lyrics and poetry is you can be kind of non-specific or really ambiguous.
Yeah.
And that almost gives them more power. And I think one of my big flaws as a lyricist is I'm always trying to nail down the subject and nail down the story. And when I don't worry so much about that, I can often look back and go, that's a much better song than what I wrote yesterday, which is really obviously about loss or infidelity or whatever.
You say that, but despite the fact that one of my favourite Del Amitri songs is Sometimes I Just Have to Say Your Name, you very rarely do. You actually don't get so specific.
No, I want
that you'll hook it on a character.
I want you to have to sort of figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be.
There aren't many names
obvious.
at all. Leslie Crowther. There's maybe a couple in the entirety of all the inamoratas you could have. Justin Currie. It's just there's you don't tend to name names.
No, and also there's a classic, almost like a genre in itself of pop songwriting, where it's a woman's name or usually a woman's name in the 50s and 60s. Now all the good names have been taken. all the names that scan really well. And there's sort of none left. We had a song called Penelope when I was in my Del Amitri school, and that was really awful. Penelope doesn't really work as a song title.
Is that too much of your mum's influence giving you Penelope Fitzgerald books and stuff? You're like, right, I'll just bring that into... Was there a Penelope?
No, it would be us desperately aping Orange Juice's Felicity. That's what that would be. I mean, really, just copying it.
Oh, my goodness.
Shameful.
So you're off to Kelso in 2 minutes, so we're going to wind up. But I can't, of course. We know about the book. You can hear a lot more about that. Del Amitri, new songs, speaking of songwriting, she says casually.
Yeah, we've written a bunch of new songs, and we're just sort of debating how we approach recording it. We want to do something quite a bit different. The last album was designed to sound like us.
Yeah.
And now we don't feel like we have to do that anymore. I mean, it will still sound like us, but I think we'll be a bit more... not weird, but just, I don't know. We'll be a bit more singer-songwritery. We were really wary of doing that because we didn't want the Fatal Mistakes to sound anything like one of the solo records. And now we don't really give a damn. It's just if a song's good, it'll go in. Okay. But how we record it, we really don't know. Like guitars up here, trousers up in your waist. Joseph K, bring it back. The guitars should go back up. We did a gig in Night Moves years ago with the very baggy trousers in those days, and we all went on stage wearing sunglasses, and our guitars were right almost above our nipples, right? Because that was the thing. That was what you did. And so after we did the opening song in sunglasses, we all I can't believe we did this. We all put our sunglasses into like glasses cases and put them in our pockets. And my sister was at the gig, and she was like, "It took me half the gig to realize you weren't wearing like cod pieces." She was like, "Why have they all stuck like these phallic things down their trousers?" There's these sort of big lumps. It's like she thought, why are they doing? It's like, and this is before Spinal Tap, so that
quite. Jeez. That could have been
mistake.
Your thing. That could, listen, if it's good enough for Cameo, right? Word up, they had the cod pieces, right? They took it from you. You set the tone. Well, listen. Who knows what they're going to wear on stage tonight after this?
My guitar will be here.
Right, I bet it will. We'll see. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the brilliant tech folk at the stand. And a huge thank you to Justin Currie for doing all that reading and listening and watching for us.
Thanks again to lovely Justin Currie, to everyone at the stand in Edinburgh, and to you if you joined us there last year. Justin's book, The Tremolo Diaries, really is worth a read if you haven't yet picked it up. If you fancy seeing Del Amitri live, and if you can get hold of a ticket, they're live in Edinburgh, Perth, Aberdeen, Dundee and Glasgow in December, along with dates across the UK. And they're also playing various US shows as well. Have a look online for details of all of that, and there's also some fab news about reissues. Lynn Ramsey's hypnotic Morven Caller is streaming now if you're minded to watch it, as is her debut feature, Ratcatcher, which also stars, incidentally, a James Gillespie. Val McDermid touched on that in her episode of A Kick Up the Arts, all back to 9. You can listen back to that. And all previous episodes with guests like Sanjeev Kohli, Holly McNish, Chris Brookmeyer, Gordon Buchanan and loads more, just wherever you get your podcasts. If you fancy hearing more chat about Muriel Spark on A Kick Up the Arts, there are episodes with both Clare Grogan and Ian Rankin singing her praises. And if you'd like to come along to some more live events, I'm in conversation with best-selling author Anne Cleves, creator of Vera and Shetland. That's at Edinburgh Castle on April the 24th. Then I'm with poet and writer Michael Peterson at the Bookmonger in Bear's Den. That's on April the 28th. And then I'll be with female and non-binary musical collective and trailblazers Hen Hoose. That's at the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh on the 28th of May. Hope to see you there or somewhere soon. And thank you as always for listening, for getting in touch and for sharing. Bye for now.